What you're about to see here, I've never shown to the general public before. I might delete this video in the next hour. I don't know. I'm not even kidding about that. So why would I share it here? Because I do want more folks to actually see what it's like to sit and trade with me, to be on a team at Apteros, to study markets on a team like we're putting together. So like I said, haven't shown this stuff before, but I did trade every morning on a live stream, calling out my trades, in real time. And I did that for nearly 2 years. A lot of you have probably seen some of those streams. But as you know, I didn't share a whole lot of rationale behind the trades. I wanted to keep, most of that to myself. So before we begin, let me set the context for you a little. This is a recording of something I typically do towards the end of what we call an advanced group mentoring class. It's a live trading and teaching session with the whole group on a Zoom call. The video picks up after we'd spent about 20 minutes together discussing my prep, how exactly I arrived at my plans to attack the day. This video is long, it may be boring, but the lessons you might learn from it could be pretty massive. So, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you appreciate the transparency. Trade well. A lot of times, like right now, I might see that there is some semblance of the beginnings of a turn, right? Like we just said, buyers just came in, okay? There's not a ton of volume at the low there. It's at an important inflection. So keep in mind here, guys, it's almost like I'm going to make a sub point within my sub point. I'm not always this focused on the delta on the footprint. The only reason we're talking about this stuff right now is because we're at the inflection. It's like go time right off the bat here, right? So it's important. It's important for you not to start this call and be like, okay, I'm going to listen to Merritt and what he does. Well, all he's doing is focusing on the delta and stuff, so that's what I'm going to do as well. No, we're at an inflection. We have a setup with DVA. We understand the narrative behind it. The acceptance is there, right? The rhythm is now there. And now we're looking at order flow. So that was just a side point. One thing that I often find myself in a kind of a situation like this where you start to see some semblance of a turn starting to happen very, very early in that phase. I'll find myself looking for one of two things. And this is an oversimplification because there's a lot of other stuff. But one, it either gives me that like little stop run or wick or something that says this is an even better short-term timing point. Or two, it simply drifts enough to where the momentum shift is clear, even if it's just on price. And I'm compelled, not from an emotional perspective or a FOMO perspective, but from a process perspective, I have to put the risk on. It's part of my hypo. It's part of my plan. I got the rotation. Delta's not scaring me. It has turned. I didn't see anything awesomely capitulatory or super weak maybe necessarily, but it's now the momentum's shifted enough. Time to put the risk on. My process is a better trader than I am, right? I mean, this is like watching paint dry. This is where we trading the boond. All right.
So when the market's this slow, Merritt, do you use limit orders or do you still just
not
market
really?
it?
Yeah. Not really. So what I do when I flip to charts a lot of times is it depends on how good my short-term memory is. When I flip charts, what I look at depends on what's in that short-term memory bank. Does that make sense? Like if I flip over to S&P, like quite frankly, I couldn't really remember what was going on in the S&P. Almost like from a narrative perspective, like, I was like, I didn't have the short-term memory there that says, I know exactly what I'm going to look for here. And so I do a quick rundown of the long-term VWAPs. I glance at the CVA. I glance at my prep levels. And now I'm grounded in context, right? And now I can take a look at, okay, imbalanced up. Okay. Really stalking the crude long here. It's going to be one of those things where if they start to lift it up here, I'm going to join them. But if they'll have to make me get into this trade by showing me, hey, train's leaving the station. Otherwise, I understand that it's very slow. Price action's pretty clean on the RTH, so it hasn't been overly choppy. So, right, it's headed back down a little bit. And so I have time to glance at the S&P. S&P just opened, so I'm interested. Really not a trade location spot for me. Well, it is as you can see, one of the most important contextual trade locations, and it's at an inflection. But the acceptance picture is inside the CVA. The acceptance picture is inside weekly prior value, right? So that conflicts with the fact that we're imbalanced up on the ETH. So really, I don't have a trade there. All right, long crude there. Just got in at 96. I guess we can mark trades. It doesn't really matter, but so now that that's done, what can we talk about in terms of trade management, right? So, obviously we've got potential here for a decent move because it is such a confluent area. We're going to have some time frames that agree with each other here. First thing we have would be our brand new RTH. We're already hitting that VWAP, but I'm not really interested in scaling at this moment. Things are so slow. The thought crosses my mind, but looks like we timed this really nicely. Looks like we got some buying that's coming in behind us, so that's good. ETH VWAP looks really nice because you have ETH VWAP. Kind of makes sense with some of this slower, smaller rhythm we've been seeing. And it's getting close to, we might go ETH VWAP / prior value high, but we do have that point, the composite point of control. So you know what? We'll be conservative. It's rollover. Let's be conservative, Merritt. We will look to start peeling some of this off. You know what? I like. I'm going to take just a little bit there. And then I'm going to take a little bit more into the, pour high now in the profile, A and B period. Looking at prior value high, looking at ETH VWAP, looking at stacked incomplete auctions here on the footprint, guys. So let's see if we blow through into the low teens, and that'll be the spot.
There you go.
Okay. So now it's really like we might as well end the webinar, because now I'm not going to have much to say other than like if we find other trades in S&P or things like that, which I should check on. Yeah, again, it was imbalanced up, but I just didn't like the acceptance picture yet. So now we're starting to get some substantial movement beyond the CVA. So if we continue to hold it, we'll see if we can find some longs and whatnot. But developing value. I don't know. I got to keep marinating on that. Okay. Any questions about that crude sequence? Thoughts? Anything?
Did you take your second scale off there, Merritt?
Yeah, on the flush through the into the low teens there, where we had stacked
Yep.
incomplete auctions.
Yep.
And that was into the area that I talked about. It's prior value, it's composite point of control, it's ETH VWAP. I got a little extra because of those, because essentially the incomplete auction at 42.10, I was able to get a little extra on the trade because I didn't just put a limit order at VWAP. I said, you know what, there's some things stacked in this area. And then by the way, in the shorter term, it's incomplete. So let's see if I can take advantage of an inventory grab through that area to use that liquidity to take my profits. That is professional trading.
And did you do that? Did you put a limit order up there as a target?
It was all
Just execution
manually.
You're quick.
It's not that quick. I talked about it for 3 minutes, leading into it, and my fingers on the trigger.
Yep.
So It's not that quick. It is nowhere near anything of any advanced human reaction time skill set necessary whatsoever. But only if, and I talk about this a lot with people, if you're stalking it, if you're preparing for it, if you know what's coming, and I don't mean you know what the market's going to do, I mean you know what you're going to do if XYZ, then it's no longer such a demand on processing power with the brain and speed with the fingers. It's not.
Yeah.
And it's all in the preparation. So let's talk about narrative here in crude. Let me glance at the S&P. Yeah, I just feel like maybe rhythm-wise, S&P is trying to, I think that's what it is. It's interesting. I think maybe rhythm-wise, S&P needs to pull back more. And so that's why I feel uncomfortable aggressively looking to get long, because to me, it feels out of rhythm. So maybe if there's quite a time stall up here and we get the rhythm like that, then I would take it. But I'm just not compelled. It's probably just going to drive without us, but I don't care. To me, the rhythm component has me cautious on the S&P. And really it looks better on the footprint, not the footprint, the market profile. It looks like, oh yeah, we're accepted above the CVA. But on the intraday chart, it's not great acceptance yet relative to the rhythm that we've seen even in the overnight session. So again, just not comfortable in this area looking for long. All right, so a couple things with crude. What's my mentality here? What do I think? What am I looking at? Essentially nothing. I don't care. Okay. It made a rotation. In fact, we got lucky. It made a good rotation. You know, like we just captured, like within, you know, a couple minutes, you know, 3 minutes, I think, into that most recent scale. Essentially, the almost the best range you could have captured from the whole session on Friday, right? So it's a good spot to be in. But importantly, I'm not staring at the tape. I will continue to monitor Delta. Maybe I shouldn't, but I will continue to look at it. It's not going to play a huge factor in any type of trade management here. Now is where you shift to narrative. Now is where you shift to understanding the variables involved in your core position and what we think about that. So what can we think about that? One, we could make the rotation across our CVA. That's kind of the most important thing to me. That is confluent with that general area we talked about pre-market, weekly prior value, 53, monthly developing, 66. So 50s, 60s is, I think, a really good place to seriously look, because it's rollover, to seriously look to just take it off. This is not a trade where I'm eyes as wide as saucers and licking my lips and saying, "Oh, this is the big one, the Billy Baru." No, that's not this. So I'm thinking
Merritt,
targeted across CVA. Yes.
how do we know we're nearing rollover? It's kind of a basic question, probably, but I have the rollover, the 70K, 53K
Yeah.
volume line items pulled up, but is there like an official date or something like that you reference?
I'm like a wandering, like an idiot wandering around when it comes to rollover. I would bet you that it happens around the same time every month.
Mm-hmm.
After having traded crude for a decade,
Mm-hmm.
and this, I think this is related to my having a really, really poor sense of direction. I have no idea when rollover occurs, and I bet it recurs around the same time every month. I have no idea. I
Okay.
watch this every morning. I
Right.
look at where
Yep.
the volumes are, and I adjust.
Okay. I'll keep doing the same then.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does anyone know
It
when? I
works.
mean, does rollover typically occur in crude oil around mid? That's just after the middle of the month. I feel like an idiot. Well, if you guys don't know either, that makes me feel
You
better.
know, we're on the same boat.
Yeah, I have
Good.
no idea.
Maybe that's a trader thing. Maybe that's a badge of honor. I don't know. So speaking of that poor high at Glavia, well, in particular, this is crude, but they both had poor highs from Friday. So just coming up, getting even with that, looking to take it out, which is right into ETH developing value. I might take a small piece off. So it's 7 by 60, little incomplete higher. All right, I just took just a tiny piece. So now I'm really done with the scales. There is nothing else I want to remotely interested in scaling out. And, we'll see if maybe, RTH remains imbalanced. Obviously, we have a hurdle here now with ETH. And it's truly at the point where I could forget I have this trade on, put it in an OCO bracket, even though that's not what I'm going to do, and go play with the dog, So
What's the bigger picture target for it?
The destination is pretty good on the CVA, the weekly, and the monthly.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
composite value high, weekly prior value high, monthly development value high.
Okay. I've recently gone from experimenting with going from 1 lot to 2 lots, and for scaling reasons, and I can see a need to go from 2 to 3 to continue to practice that, or to have that advantage.
It's nice, but it's not as nice as you might think right now.
Okay.
It's almost nice emotionally. I think it's important to get back to the math of things and the probabilities of things and what's going on, which I'm not overly scientific about. But if you got more scales and you get to these points where it's like, oh, we get to this reference, let me take some off. We get to this reference, let me take some off. You realize you're taking away from your core position,
Mhm.
and your overall risk reward achieved, both from a theoretical perspective and from a total MAE MFE perspective, as you do that, right? So it is a trade-off.
Sure.
So we always want to balance that.
Mhm.
I am a little quicker on the trigger today in terms of scales because of the context of rollover.
So I just posted a link for rollovers, but I haven't looked at it myself, but it's a pretty good calendar that NinjaTrader provides.
Interesting. So they do have it's almost like a roll date, but then a last trade date.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. It could be valuable. Thanks for sharing. Pretty much nothing's changed about the S&P other than it's spent more time above the CVA level. I will be right back.
Huh. Oil this morning has done the weekly value area range in the first, what, 30 minutes, or in a 30-minute time frame.
Yep, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's how slow it's been. And that was still only, what, 50 cents, 60 cents?
Yeah.
Here's where I have challenges, right here. So I'm down to my core position, my last contract. So do you take it off here, or do you try and weather another pullback? How do you read this?
I finished my position here. That's fine, because I was holding just to continue.
Okay, I'm back. Interesting, crude.
Yeah. So we were just talking about, do you take your last position off here, or do you just watch close and see if it'll go through there, or how do you do this?
I don't think there is a right answer to that in this situation, especially when you factor in rollover. Keep in mind it is a stacked area. So we've got the CVA, we've got monthly, 10 cents higher, almost 20 cents higher than where we are now. So maybe a bit more of a range there. It's into the +2 ETH, right? Like this, if you're at all thinking, like, in fact, I'm thinking that as well. So I'm out. I'm flat. If you're at all thinking this is the area, destination, things like that, even though, like we were saying, stacked references, some higher, you got the trade. You got exactly what you were looking for. The thing that I did do just then was just wait and see, just minimally, is it going to blow through, right? And so for me, yeah, it was incomplete at the high, but it stalled and it started to drift down a little bit. And it's like, you know what? It's a great place to come out. It does seem like this market has gotten some energy, that things picking up a little bit. So that's in favor of holding more. But again, trading is not about how can I make a decision that is going to look the most perfect in terms of the execution on the chart when it's all said and done. A lot of people try and reverse engineer that and make that happen when they're trading. I think what's important is to look at your processes and what is an intelligent hard right edge decision no matter what happens next. So I think that's what I did there. And I said that earlier around, you know, I'm not really interested in trying to hit a home run on this particular trade. Now, if the tape continues to pick up and maybe there's news breaking or whatever, and we do get a breakout pullback of the CVA, ETH and RTH imbalanced, we're breaking out a weekly prior value and monthly's getting imbalanced, something like that, I'll be all over it. But for now, we got exactly what we were looking for out of the trade.
Yeah, risk reward on this trade is pretty decent.
I'll say. You mean like what we achieved from the low to, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I got about 7-1 on the core.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good trade.
Yep.
That's I've been trying to develop trade management with a reason to exit, and I was working through, well, the time to exit is when there's a short. You're long, the time to exit is when there's actually a short. That doesn't work out so well, it doesn't seem like. But if I start thinking about risk reward, and if you can get a 5-1 or better, that's a good trade by itself. I mean, that's a good trade. So take your money and feel good about it. Are you?
Yep.
Is this your pullback on ES? Possibly.
Yeah, I just like I was saying, when I look at this ETH chart, when I look at the weekly, to me, you know, weekly rhythm, I feel like it needs more of a pullback. It needs more time. I'm not going to wait that a ton. That's quite advanced to kind of go to that and say, don't like it here. Focus on rhythm on your intraday charts first and foremost, and acceptance relative to levels on the higher time frames. But that is a thought of mine. But yeah, this is the pullback.
Hey, Merritt.
Yes, sir.
Why do you like using the time-based chart alongside the volume-based chart?
That's a new thing for me.
Okay.
I used to essentially entirely use all volume based. That's how I operated for a long time. I don't know. I just started seeing some benefit in getting a more three-dimensional view
Mhm.
of not only, because when you just look at the volume, sometimes you can lose. Well, in fact, you often lose the perspective of time,
Mhm.
which can be okay. It's not that it's really important, but I just found that sometimes the time-based chart shows me a little different picture, especially when things are slow, right? Because the volume-based chart is not going to be printing bars, so all the pullbacks almost look like they're just occurring in
Mhm.
quote unquote the same amount of time, right?
Mhm.
But the price-based chart will really kind of holler at you when it's very slow developing pullback, and it will look more flaggy than, let's say, the volume-based chart would. So it
Okay.
gives me a little different, just slightly different picture sometimes that can help me make some decisions.
Okay.
All right, guys, that is going to wrap up the live stream here. One thing I want to say in parting is, I'm almost disappointed that today was so easy, because yeah, it's great for you to see me execute a nice winning trade, but there were no problems. There was no dissonance to deal with. There was no like, I'm going to make a call here and do this. I guess other than the pretty kind of the exit, on strength, rather than, giving it much more of a chance for the quarterly to really rip and roar and get in balance, but that, again, context of rollover and the stacked likely destinations in this area, to me, crude doesn't seem like it's done, but like I said, it was quite good what we did. So again, I wish that I could have had maybe a losing session or something like that shows you a little more. Do not think for a second that Merritt trading world looks like this every day. Okay? It doesn't. It's unattainable. It would be a very, very hurting, damning idea for you to think that this is what you're trying to get to. This was just one small example, and it happened to work easy and work quickly and blah, blah, blah.
I
Not
guess
the
we'll
case.
just have to do it again, huh, Merritt?
Right.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, me. So, I think that's really, really important for you guys to really listen to those words. I grind and struggle and have losers and make discretionary calls that are wrong with the benefit of hindsight, right? And all that stuff. And to just see like one winner work, it's just one winner. I have more losers than I do winners, okay? So all right, guys. But on the flip side, I think today was a really nice example of, we planned that out pre-market. You started to hear how in advance, I think that was one of the biggest things today, maybe for some of you, was just how many steps ahead of the market I am in moment to moment preparation. I'm not trying to play catch up. I'm not even really, at the hard right edge, even though to a large degree I am. I'm thinking about, given what's at the hard right edge, what's in the future. And so that makes, like with Lance, we were talking about speed and quickness. It makes it easier to do that. It makes my decisions less impulsive, although still discretionary. So anyways, any questions before we hop off?
You changed volume there earlier in the session, right?
Yep.
Because it was so slow in
Yep.
oil, went down to, I think, a 500 volume chart.
Yep.
Do you do that regularly?
No.
I mean,
No, I do not. It's very, very few and far between when I start adjusting those charts. When, think about it, like I usually, my normal for a decade is 1,000 volume on crude, right?
yeah,
If we look at 1,000 volume,
yeah,
what strikes me is on this RTH chart, I can essentially see 3 full days.
yeah.
I don't care what happened on Wednesday afternoon. Like I don't need that information for what I'm going to do over here. I
Mhm.
do like to see the current day, be able to see a full day on this chart, and be able to see the profile and whatever kind of maybe what happened on the prior day kind of. And so when I start to see too many days, or I can't see yesterday's profile, I might tweak the setting.
Merritt, I noticed also that, so on your, like the screen, you don't have the monthly or the weeklies up. So do you, like, throughout
What do
the
you mean I
session,
don't have the weeklies up?
or like,
I have a
is
different
it,
screen which has all my long-term VWAPs on it.
okay. Maybe that's what, okay. Never mind. I was just wondering, if,
You remember
my
when we were
question,
doing the prep, I would take
Right.
this and I would drag it over and I would
okay,
talk
so you
about
have another
these.
screen. I was just wondering if that was the case, if you like checked on them, but yeah, you just
Yeah,
have
I
them on
have
a different screen.
four monitors.
Okay.
Are we going to be meeting this afternoon, Merritt?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great.
All right, guys. So we will talk to you the same, what is that? Same bat time, same bat place? Is that the thing? I don't know. All right. Cheers, guys.
Thanks,
All
Merritt.
right. Thanks.
Thanks, Merritt. Bye.
Bye.